everyone. Welcome back. It's 1 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for us to do our live show here at NBC News on our Instagram account. My name is Savannah Sellers. I'm an NBC News correspondent. I've been doing this for the last couple weeks, and the plan is to keep doing it 1 p.m. Eastern, live every day right here on the NBC News account. For those of you who have been watching, thanks for coming along, and for those of you who this is your first time joining us, thanks. Every day I try to give you updates that you need, but also stories that you want to hear, want to inform you, but not overwhelm you, and always try to leave you with something to smile about. So we are going to get started as I try to do every day with some good news. So something that is hopefully not too scary to hear and actually sort of makes it feel like we are moving in a positive direction. So today, that good news is that just like I said yesterday, the worst does look like it's over. I say that cautiously because that's how healthcare experts are saying it. No one's exactly sure, of course, and we need to continue to see these trends of hospitalizations either stabilizing or dropping off in order to be sure that this really is the worst is over, that we have sort of hit that peak and we're down on the other side of it. But last night we had an NBC News special where Savannah Guthrie interviewed Dr. Fauci, the nation's top infectious diseases expert who's on that White House coronavirus task force. And he said that there is no doubt that what we've seen over the last several days is a flattening out, even in New York, which of course has been the worst hit. And he said we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. So that was nice for me to hear. I thought you guys might want to also hear that too if you hadn't already. He also pointed out, which is the same reason that I've been sort of giving you the updates on New York every day, and actually Governor Cuomo is giving his daily briefing right now. But he pointed out that if New York is the prototype, which sort of has been since we were really the first and so far the only that's had such a dramatic outbreak, we've been so dramatically impacted by the pandemic, we are getting better. Things are looking better for us. And so if New York is the prototype, hopefully that's what happens across the country. He did point out that there are a few states and cities that could sort of be behind just because their outbreaks began later, but that we now kind of have an idea of what to expect there. So hopefully that means that we can look at this trend to mean that it is happening nationally. In New York, I talk about this every day, like I just mentioned. It's right after the governor's briefing, or at the same time as it is right now. He's still talking, but he's given most of his sort of numbers information. Intubations are down, and the infection spread is down to a manageable number, which is great. And that manageable number is really important, because what the manageable number means is that we might, our hospitals are able to handle what's going on. We were not sure that would be the case. That was really the big concern with trying to flatten the curve, was that if we don't flatten it soon enough, or if we have this incredible peak that just really happens all at once rather than a flattening of that curve and then a drop off, that our hospitals would be inundated and overwhelmed. And it seems that isn't happening. Of course, it's very tough at our hospitals right now. Our frontline healthcare workers are total heroes, but we are in an okay position, better than we thought, I guess is the best way to put it. Just for example, we have had several of these field hospitals set up around New York that I've been showing you guys, like the one that's in Central Park. There are tents there that are set up. Some cathedrals have been turned into field hospitals. The Arthur Ashe Stadium, which is where the U.S. Open is played, was turned into a field hospital. And then also the Javits Center was turned into, which is a big conference center here in Manhattan, was turned into a huge field hospital with 2,500 beds. And the governor said today that about 800 people have gone through there. So 800 people going through there when it has the capacity for 2,500, and it was meant to be basically like an overfill hospital, is pretty good numbers. It's not like it's full every day for what it was anticipated to be. Hospitalizations are continuing to tick down here in New York, and now the big thing that I will get into in a moment here also is testing. I've been talking about it here on the show every day because it is really sort of the big deal thing here, is how, and maybe a big key about how we get back to normal, is testing. And now actually Governor Cuomo compared the testing capacity and what we need to be able to get to, what needs to be developed, and what labs are able to handle, is like the need for ventilators in that first phase. So in the first phase, the ventilators were what we were really concerned about not having enough of. And now it does look like testing is really becoming that new thing. So that's what we're going to need. That's what private companies are working on. That's what labs are working on. The FDA is using emergency powers to quickly authorize and approve tests faster than normal. So all of that is what we're working towards now. And I'll get into more testing stuff that you might need shortly. All right, some of the other big stuff that we're at today, some of the big headlines that I just think are important to kind of touch on. There's been this battle, we talked about it yesterday, between President Trump and governors, and who has the power to reopen the country, who has the power to reopen states. So where it sort of really hit this head was where President Trump had said it was up to him, he had total authority, and then Governor Cuomo of New York said, it's not up to you, and if you try to open my state without me saying that it's okay to open my state, we will have a constitutional crisis because I will defy you, and then sort of throw things into chaos. President Trump has now sort of conceded he's saying that he will allow the governors to be the ones to reopen it. But he did also say that in that same breath, he said that May 1st before May 1st is when some states could start opening, Trump said. Right now, that doesn't seem like a possibility to some other people. Dr. Fauci, who I mentioned, the nation's top infectious diseases expert, he would not name a state when pressed by Savannah Guthrie that could potentially open before May 1st. He did say states that have less density, there's more land, more rural areas, could potentially be somewhere, but he would not name a state that he thought could be back to normal or reopened, the economy reopened, non-essential businesses opened before May 1st, as the president has mentioned. The other big news from the president is that he has said that he will stop funding the World Health Organization. Now, the U.S. is the World Health Organization's largest funder. President Trump is criticizing the way that they've handled the virus and even saying that they sort of covered up and enabled China to not be reporting accurately on what was going on in their country. This is, something that is being looked at under a microscope, with many people criticizing that decision, saying that now more than ever we need the World Health Organization. And Democrats are saying that President Trump does not have the power to do this, and Pelosi is saying that she's going to try to block it. So we will keep an eye on that for you and let you know what happens over the next couple days as that continues to be a headline. Every day I try to give you some things that you might need to know or might affect you personally rather than just big headlines. So I've got a couple of those today. The first one being testing. Like I said, I would get into that momentarily. So the first one that we've been talking about a little bit is antibody testing. So antibody testing is where you have your blood drawn and it tells you if you have antibodies. Now, you have antibodies if you had the virus. So your body worked against the virus and now it's created this in your system that is going to fight off the virus. This is important because a lot of people who were asymptomatic, who might have never known that they had the virus, would learn that they had it if they have antibodies. Now, the thing about this is there's a question mark about how immune you are. And Dr. Fauci said also on our special last night and in the interview that aired again this morning on the Today Show, that when you have the antibody after the infection, it almost always means you're protected. That's from normal or viruses that we know more about, that are not new like this is. But we are not absolutely sure about that yet here. So we've been sort of banking on the fact that antibodies would help. It would mean that some of the community has hopefully become immune. They think that that's the case with this, but we just don't know the durability of that protection, is what he called it. Is it a month that you're protected from it? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? The working operation had been about a year, but there basically is more research that's needed to be done on that. And there's a lot more that still needs to be done to get antibody testing for that to be possible in a mass way, which is really what we need in order for the antibody testing to help us understand anything on a mass scale and for it to be one of those keys to getting back to normal. So we would need to know from a lot of people if they have those antibodies in order for it to be like, yay, we can reopen things. Now, another test that I talked about yesterday that I wanted to update you has begun in New Jersey is this saliva test. So today in New Jersey, it is happening. This was developed by researchers at Rutgers University and is first being rolled out to hospitals and clinics affiliated with the school. But the hope is that this will be rolled out to the rest of the country in the weeks or months to come. So I know that that's a big window, but that's what we're hearing so far. Right now in New Jersey, there's an hour or longer wait to get this test done. And if you are there for a test, you actually had an appointment. So you had an appointment and then there's still that big wait. So it is being, of course, highly sought after, as many tests are right now. But basically, it's a simpler method. It's faster to do. The hope is that it's more efficient because we are actually getting a lot of false negatives and a lot of false positives, which, again, I know all of this is very frustrating, that it's basically a big question mark and there's a lot that we don't know. But hopefully this has it's more accurate. It will tell you if you have it more accurately the first time, hopefully. And the thing that's really great about this is that it also lowers the need for so much personal protective equipment for healthcare workers, which is one of the other big problems we have right now. So this is sort of a solution in some way to some of that, because basically a healthcare worker just hands somebody who potentially has the coronavirus a cup, that person spits in it, and then they hand it back. It's less interaction time between them. It's less actual physical contact between the two people. Right now, the main testing has been that a healthcare professional has to actually swab quite intensely inside somebody who potentially thinks they have the virus's nose. So much so, I said this yesterday, and sorry, I know it's gross, that some people have been saying that it felt like they swabbed their brain. That's how intense it is. It's really up there, and it's for an extended period of time. So that just means more contact between the healthcare professional and someone who's potentially sick. So this would make that less of a concern, hopefully mean that less personal protective equipment is needed. And the other big thing is that you could get the results in 24 to 48 hours, which is much quicker than the test that we've mostly been using right now. So that's great. The other big thing that I know there are questions about, and I want to thank you because a lot of you did send me questions about this, so I'm addressing it. And also, some of you messaged me just to tell me that you did, in fact, get your stimulus check. So I'm very happy for you if the money has come to you. And also thank you for letting me know, because it's helping us do some reporting on, are Americans really seeing this or not? So as I said the other day, the IRS said that the checks were starting to go out over this weekend. And then over 80 million Americans are supposed to see the coronavirus stimulus check deposited into their bank accounts by today. So many of you may have actually just gotten them today. If you haven't yet and you're eligible, don't worry. So the first round of checks were being automatically deposited into the bank accounts of those who, as I've been saying here, filed taxes in 2018 or 2019, and then you received a refund via direct deposit. So if the IRS has all that information, I see someone says, got mine at 3 a.m., another got my stimulus today. Thanks for letting me know, guys. If you've done all that, then they can easily direct deposit it into your account. And I'm assuming that for these people, K, Claire, J33, Toonman 45, is that what happened with you? Let us know. But that you probably did receive a refund, you've done your taxes, so your direct deposit information was in there. Now, if you didn't, they are working out ways that you can still do it. It just might take a little bit longer, and there's a couple things. You could be actually mailed a check, which could take longer, but they're also working out other ways that you could potentially input your bank information through a portal called Get My Payment, this new tool from the IRS that will come out that is just starting to roll out. Now, there is quite a bit of demand, of course. There are quite a few questions, and I know it's difficult to get those answered, so all of this is taking a little bit longer. And one of the questions from the other day that we were asked about Social Security recipients, Social Security retirement and disability beneficiaries will also automatically receive those payments as long as the direct deposit information was in there, but you are eligible. I know there will probably be quite a few questions about this, and we'll continue getting you those answers. Somebody says, I owed the IRS last year, did not receive a check yet. So that might be if you owed the IRS, as long as you had put in your bank information in order to pay them, but it doesn't sound like you got a direct deposit from them as a refund. They just need your bank information in order to quickly give you the direct deposit. Yes, I filed in February and got my refund by direct deposit in February. Wow. If you have not done your taxes and they did not have that information, then you need to go to the IRS's website and make sure that you are actually going there yourself. irs.gov/coronavirus. Lots of scam text messages are going around. I've been telling you guys about those. And so don't click on links through those that are then asking for your personal banking information. Those are most likely not real. It's most likely a scam. And there have been a lot of complaints to the FTC about scams, so watch out for those. But if you did not do it, if you go to the IRS website, there's those certain ways that they're either going to be able to mail them to you, or hopefully through this new tool that they've rolled out, this Get My Payment tool, you can actually input your bank information and then it will come out. All right, so I'm sure that there will be other questions about that, but we will see. You guys can send in other questions right now. I always like to end by answering questions. I will do that. In the meantime, while some questions are coming in, as I do every day, I'm going to show you something to smile about / potentially even like kind of cry about. This is just the sweetest story in my opinion. So this is an 88-year-old man right here. He is in what is called a bucket truck. It's one of those sort of cranes with a bucket on the end, looking in the window of the nursing home where his wife is. Now, every single day before this, he visited his wife. He would have breakfast and then he would go see his wife, and he would basically stay with her all day and hardly ever leave her side. He has not been able to see her because of the coronavirus. At first, they were limiting visitors and then stopped them altogether. So he hasn't seen her for 4 weeks. And after he had been seeing her every single day, they just celebrated their 61st wedding anniversary in February. So that was a long time for them to be apart after having been married and together every day for 61 years. So he used this bucket truck to go up there and see her. He held up a sign that said, "I love you, sweetheart." And he said, "They could have lifted me 10 stories and it would not have bothered me as long as I got to see her," which just makes me kind of tear up. I just think that that's so sweet. And it's always nice to have these things to smile about right now. I hope that you guys are appreciating that also. So let's get to some questions. One of them first that I want to address was something that I got yesterday. And I thank you guys again, as always, for sending in those questions to my account, which you can do at any time. So at Watch Savannah is my Instagram account. You can find me there. I'm answering as many questions as I can that I'm sent there. And one of them was to describe the app that I talked about yesterday. So I'll just try to quickly do that again. Said in detail, could you say how it works? So Apple and Google are coming out with this app together, which in and of itself is pretty cool that they're working together. That the idea is that it will help with contact tracing. So what's going to happen is you have to download the app, and they are very serious about privacy in the app, which is the biggest concern about it. And the biggest criticism of it is that it is basically a surveillance technique, but you have to opt into it. You have to agree to it. They say that all of your information will stay on your phone, including who you come into contact with. So you get the app, you opt into it. The idea is that hopefully, if you want the app to work, most people have the app, because then what happens is your phone works as basically its own personal little Bluetooth tower, and it pings every time that you come into contact with somebody 6 feet or closer and for some extended period of time, a minute, a couple minutes. Then what happens is later on, you go your separate ways. Later on, if one of the people that you have come in contact with, so your phone is basically just keeping a log of these pings every time it comes within 6 feet of somebody for a couple of minutes. If one of those people that you've come into contact with gets a positive result, the idea is then that they can go into the app and upload that positive result saying, "Hey, I got it." Anyone that was around me, whether it be the grocery store, passing by on a street corner, standing next to each other, waiting to cross the street, those people will be notified you came into contact with somebody who has it. Check yourself, watch out for symptoms, stay home potentially. So that's how the app would work. It takes us all, again, opting into it, determining that we do want to use it. There are some criticisms and concerns about the efficacy and privacy, but that's where we're at with that app. So thank you for that question. Another question that I've actually seen somebody asking here quite a bit. Oh, somebody says, "Why do you like to move your hands so much?" Well, it's just a habit. I'm so sorry. Somebody says, "How long is an asymptomatic person an active carrier of the virus?" Somebody asked that quite a few times. Well, the big issue is that we don't even know how long somebody who's symptomatic is an active carrier of the virus, because what we've seen happening is people for an extended period of time who are no longer having symptoms still testing positive for the virus. And one of the big questions there is this people who, because there's a couple different things going on, people who are just continuing to test positive for a long period of time, and then secondly, people who have the virus, then get over the virus, but then test positive again. The question on that second scenario that I just explained is that person then not actually immune and they caught the virus again, or was it always sort of within them and it just sort of was dormant and then reactivated? And I know that sounds sort of convoluted and like a very minute difference in the things that I said, but it does actually mean something to these scientists and doctors about which case it is, because it has to do with, do you become immune after you have had the virus? So to answer your question, and I'm sorry to answer it this way because again, I know a lot of this is we don't know, but that's something that they are actively working to try to figure out, is how long are you still able to be passing it on? How long are you an active carrier of the virus? Right now, as far as an asymptomatic or symptomatic person, there's not really a distinction, because the idea is just that the way that the virus manifests itself within each individual is different. So whether you have a lot of symptoms and feel really sick or you're asymptomatic, they still are just trying to determine what the life of the virus looks like in each person. Somebody says, will testing eventually be available to everyone? That is a great question. It's actually a question that Governor Cuomo just addressed in his briefing in New York. That is the hope, and that's what a lot of officials are saying it might take to get us back to normal before there's a vaccine. So while there's not a vaccine available, what might be the key to opening the economy is testing people. But there are those big hurdles, these big research hurdles that we really do have to get our hands around first. Like, for example, I mentioned before, are you immune or are you not immune if you have antibodies? Because if you have antibodies, let's say they roll that test out to everybody, which is, we're a long way from that being possible. But let's just say that we get to that place. Then the point of having that test is to see who is immune or not. But first we need to determine if having those antibodies means that you're immune. The idea is that, the hope, I should say, is that everybody will be tested one way or another. Right now, that would look like the antibody testing, probably, because right now the only real reason to get tested to see if you have the coronavirus is if you are feeling sick and if your symptoms match up and if your doctor thinks that you could potentially have it, or if you've been in extended contact with somebody who does have it, like someone in your household. Thank you for these great questions. Somebody asked, how does my mom get the relief check without having a bank account? That's where you would need to go to irs.gov, because that's where you can input your information to have an actual check sent to you. They are actually planning on mailing checks to people anyway, whether you're seeking out that information or not. If they do not have your bank account to do a direct deposit from 2018 or 2019 taxes. But you should check out there to see if there's a way to input her information. Well, thank you for these questions, you guys. I know I've been talking for a while, so I'll go. But I love getting your questions. I love talking to you guys every day. And thank you for those of you who are writing me, like I said, to say, we got our checks and kind of updating me. It's been cool to have that dialogue going on. But I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. If you're sick, we'll be thinking about you. Get better. And have a great day, you guys. Be nice to each other. I will see you tomorrow and every day, 1 p.m. Eastern, live here on the NBC News Instagram account. You can find me. I'm at Watch Savannah on Instagram, and I, again, am checking for messages and questions and answering as many as I can, or you guys can send me those good news stories. That's where I've been finding some of those. Have a good day. We'll see you guys later. I see a couple other people say they got their check. Good for you. I'm happy to hear it. Talk to you guys tomorrow.